Hello, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Kamp, President and CEO of the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce, here for our March 25th weekly legislative update. I want to start by thanking not only the legislators who participated in today's legislative roundtable in person at the library, but also the dozen or so folks who participated on the Zoom as well. We're happy to offer both of those functions going forward, but we were really happy to be able to offer that in-person option and look forward to continuing to do so going forward. Over the last 2 years, we haven't been able to do a lot of that. And it just felt really right getting those folks back together to talk about some of those issues and with some of the community leaders and some of our members as well. So just touching on a few key issues that I wanted to make sure I touched on this week. Most of the focus has really gotten to the point of a few key priorities still sitting out there in both chambers, in the House and the Senate, and the governor's office as well, but then the appropriations bills, the budget bills. So one of our big priorities that I've talked about week in and week out is port authorities. I won't go through all of the details as I've done that in past weeks, but where we're at right now is it's sitting in House Ways and Means, and Chairman Hine has some concerns with the bill that have been brought to him by the Farm Bureau. So the hope is that hopefully we can get the Farm Bureau, Dustin Miller with Iowa Chamber Alliance, to kind of sit down, and Brent Segrist has been very helpful in this regard, working through with Chairman Hine as a member of the Ways and Means Committee to have a conversation of what it needs to look like to kind of move forward on that piece of legislation, because it could have major impacts for our community. So we thank Senator Dawson for the work he did in helping push it through the Republican majority in the Senate. And we're really appreciative too of what Brent's doing to help it move forward in the Republican majority in the House. Charlie McConkey is also someone who's been working on the House Ways and Means in the minority to help push that issue forward too, because they both obviously see the benefits that it could have for our community. So we thank them for their work on that and hope to have some positive news here in the next week or so as to what that looks like. With regards to I Will and Tax 2.0, so Senator Dawson obviously helped organize and orchestrate and move through that large income tax reform bill that happened earlier this session. Now there's some cleanup that's going through kind of the tax reform 2.0, and it's largely some of the exemptions, some of the tax credits that they've really looked at to try to see which ones make sense, which ones don't make sense, how can they be changed to modernize our tax system even further, and ideally, obviously, create some additional revenue opportunities for the state of Iowa. So they're doing that with Tax 2.0. And then Senator Dawson has also come back with a bill that pulls out individually that I Will implementation to that 3/8 sales tax to go to the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund to fund that using those local option sales tax dollars. He talked about that at our legislative roundtable today, and we'll see if it has enough support in about the last few weeks of the session to be able to get that over the hump. We have been in the past supportive of I Will and funding recreation in that regard, because as we talked about once again at the roundtable, it largely can help with your placemaking, your quality of life, which can have impacts on talent and workforce. So those are things that we're looking at, and we appreciate everyone, Senator Dawson and others who are working on those issues to help move them forward. With regards to workforce bills, we saw three things kind of get pulled together throughout this session. The unemployment bill, that did get passed out of the House, and the Senate has passed it. So they now have to, they aren't identical bills, and they have to be the same before they can go to the governor for her consideration. The sticking point is that 1 week waiting period. The House would not like to see that in there. The Senate had it in there. We heard today at the legislative roundtable that the House likely can't pass it if it is in there. So we'll have to see what leadership works out with regards of that bill in the House and the Senate to see if they're able to get that over the hump and send it to the governor's desk. That is a priority of hers that she's made clear this session. Medical malpractice, we've beat the drum on this a lot. We've worked with our hospitals and tried to do everything we can to advocate on their behalf as a border community of the impacts that medical malpractice can have. And we even heard the personal story today from Senator Shipley regarding the story he has about the implications that medical malpractice can have of getting a doctor here versus in Nebraska. But it's really seeming like that they don't have the numbers in the House to pass that bill. And that's just a sad reality that sometimes obviously it just doesn't work, that they're not able to get those people whipped together. The trial lawyers are very much against it. There's a fair amount of lawyers in the Republican House caucus. So there's just some things that you will never get people to budge on. This is one of those for some of those folks in the House. And it's seeming like it would be a very hard thing to get it over the hump today. We learned that today from Representative Segrist. With regards to trucker tort reform, that also is very much in a challenging spot right now. Earlier this week, I believe it was paired with the medical freedom bill. It might have been late last week, I apologize, but in the last week and a half or so, the medical freedom bill was paired with trucker tort reform brought to the House floor. They actually had some waning of votes, and it actually failed by 3 votes. So it just goes to show that obviously there's an uphill battle for that issue as well. And then there is one last bill that we're watching closely, kind of the code-based changes for a statewide billing code, essentially, and things along those lines. That's something that seems like if it's going to move forward, it's going to have to be scaled down and kind of changed a little bit to get over the finish line as well. I'll end with the budget bills. The appropriations bills, obviously, the biggest thing they have left to do before they get out of before they adjourn session and get out of the Capitol. There's still some work to be done there. They are definitely making progress. I think we learned there was 5, I believe, that moved through the House this week. So there's progress being made there, but obviously the Senate has to agree or the House has to agree, vice versa, whoever sends it out to those bills and what they're funding and what the priorities are and all the details, as you can imagine. So that's something we continue to watch closely because those are going to be the last kind of finishing touches to see during the legislative session, in addition to some of the items we touched on before that are still sitting out there. Renewable fuels is another one of those as well. That's in Senator Dawson's Ways and Means Committee. So we're really kind of waiting to see kind of what the future holds for those, but they're getting to the point where there's a few very key policy bills that are on the table for conversation, and then largely the budget bills. And that's kind of how it usually goes for the session. So that's where the point we're at this year. And we'll be excited to see as we move through next week and get to our update next week, what progress has been made on some of those policy and appropriations bills. With regards to adjournment, their last scheduled day is the middle of April, is when their per diems run out and they're set for that 100-day deadline, or not deadline per se, but the 100-day threshold or mark that they're targeted to adjourn. And they may actually get out early. It's sounding more and more like they may get out the week before Easter, like Holy Thursday. So that's something that I think a lot of people would be in favor of at that Capitol, just because 1, it allows farmers to get out and kind of get ready for planting. 2, there's a holiday weekend. And 3, obviously, with redistricting especially, it's very much a heavy campaign year. So there's a lot of different things and factors to look at and consider as we look at adjournment. I look forward to coming back next week and providing an additional update on some of those key policy priorities and some of those budget bills to really see where things are moving and where we see things going in the last week or so of session. So please do come back next week and watch and see what we have going on here within the state legislature and the work that we're doing here at the Council Bluffs Chamber to make sure that our members in our community have a voice in that process. Thank you very much for all that you do in supporting the Council Bluffs Chamber as our members and as our community at large. And thank you for your continued support of the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Program. Have a nice rest of the day.